The Lagos night air was warm, carrying the faint smell of grilled suya from the streets below. The rooftop lounge glowed with soft lights, the hum of music mixing with bursts of laughter. Amara stepped out of the elevator, her heart light, her hands holding a small black box wrapped neatly with a golden ribbon. Inside was the silver cufflink set she had saved up to buy for David, her way of making his bachelor night special. She spotted him across the room, surrounded by his groomsmen. He looked sharp in a fitted white shirt, a drink in hand, his laughter carrying above the music. She smiled to herself, deciding she would sneak up from behind and surprise him. Slipping behind a tall potted plant near their table, she waited for the right moment. Then she heard it. "Ah, my guys," David said, raising his glass. "You know I picked her from the village and polished her. Now see, she's shining like city gold." The men roared with laughter. One of them imitated her voice in an exaggerated Igbo accent. Another added, "Soon she will forget how to fetch water from the stream." Her breath caught in her throat. She stayed hidden, frozen. The words rolled over her again and again. Village girl. Polished up. Like she was a project, not a person. David chuckled and leaned back. "You know, I've had to teach her everything. Even how to hold a wine glass properly. But she's learning." The table erupted again, and someone clinked glasses in approval. Amara's hands began to tremble. She gripped the gift box tighter, the ribbon digging into her palm. The music seemed distant now, the laughter sharp like broken glass in her. Her eyes burned, but she refused to let the tears fall. Not here. Not in front of strangers. Slowly, she turned away, stepping back toward the elevator. Each step felt heavy, but her face stayed calm. No one saw her leave. As the elevator doors closed, she stared at the gift in her hand. The golden ribbon suddenly looked dull. She slipped the box into her handbag and took a deep breath, willing her heart to steady. She had come to surprise the man she loved. Instead, she had just heard him strip her down to a punchline. Amara was born in a quiet town in Enugu State, where the mornings smelled of fresh rain on red earth and nights were lit by kerosene lamps. Her father had died when she was 13, leaving her mother to raise her and her younger brother, Chike. Life was simple but not easy. Her mother sold vegetables in the local market, and Amara often helped after school. From a young age, she dreamed of something bigger, to study in Lagos, to make a life where she could take care of her family. After finishing secondary school, she won admission into a university in Lagos. The move was both exciting and terrifying. She had never been to a city that big. The first year was the hardest. She worked part-time cleaning offices in the evenings and selling recharge cards to students during the day. Some nights she went to bed hungry, but she never let her mother know. It was during one of those tiring months that she met David. They crossed paths at a church youth program, where he was invited to speak about faith and success. He was confident, well-dressed, and spoke with a smooth Lagos accent. After the program, he offered to walk her home. He listened as she told him about her studies and smiled warmly, calling her focused and driven. They started talking regularly. He would surprise her with food when she was studying late and help her with her assignments. For the first time, she felt like someone truly saw her. When he asked her to be his girlfriend, she said yes without hesitation. Over the years, David became part of her family. He visited Enugu with her, charming her mother with gifts and promising to take care of Amara. Chike liked him too, always eager to talk about football whenever David came around. But there were moments, small at first, when David's charm slipped. He would correct her English in front of others, laughing lightly as if it was a joke. He told her that some of her friends were holding her back and discouraged her from spending time with them. Sometimes, when she spoke up about something she didn't like, he would sigh and say, "You worry too much. Just trust me." She told herself these were little things, nothing serious. After all, he was good to her in so many ways. When he proposed to her on a sunny afternoon at Tarkwa Bay Beach, she said yes with tears in her eyes. He slipped the ring on her finger, and she believed she was stepping into a new, beautiful chapter. Now the wedding was only 5 days away. Her mother had sold a piece of the family's farmland to help cover some of the expenses. Relatives from the village were already preparing to travel to Lagos. The wedding dress was hanging in her room, and her phone buzzed constantly with calls from friends and vendors. On the surface, everything looked perfect, but Amara didn't know that the ground beneath her was already starting to crack. The ride home from the rooftop lounge felt longer than usual. Amara sat in the back seat of the taxi, staring out at the blur of Lagos traffic. The driver's radio played softly, but she didn't hear a word. David's voice kept echoing in her head, "Village girl." I polished her up. The laughter of his friends still rang in her ear. She had imagined that night differently. She had imagined David smiling when he saw her, maybe pulling her into a hug, showing his friends the woman he was about to marry. Instead, she had walked away quietly, without saying a word. It was easier than facing the fake smile she would have to wear if she stayed. When she reached her apartment, She placed the gift box on the table and just stared at it. The golden ribbon was still neat, but it felt pointless now. She sat on the couch, her heels still on, her bag still over her shoulder. The city outside was loud, but inside her room it was silent, heavy, almost suffocating. That night she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, memories came flooding back. The first time he corrected her English in front of strangers, the way he rolled his eyes when she once used the wrong fork at a restaurant, the times he told her to be more presentable when they visited his friends. She remembered one Sunday after church when she had wanted to buy roasted corn from a roadside seller. David had smiled tightly and said, "Babe, not here. It's not classy." She had laughed it off then, telling herself he just wanted the best for her. But now, lying in the dark, it all looked different. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She reached for it, thinking it might be David, but it was a message from her cousin Ada in London. "Amara, I'm so sorry, but you need to see this." Attached was a single photo. Amara tapped it open, and her stomach dropped. It was David, at a resort in Dubai, his arm wrapped around a woman in a red dress. They looked relaxed, smiling like they had no care in the world. The date stamp at the corner of the photo showed it was taken just 2 months ago. She stared at the screen for a long time, her heart pounding in her ears. She zoomed in, hoping maybe it wasn't as bad as it looked, but there was no mistake. David wasn't just standing next to the woman. He was holding her close, his hand resting on her waist like it belonged. Her hands went cold. She quickly typed back to Ada, "Where did you get this?" Ada replied almost immediately, "My friend works at the hotel. She sent it to me when she heard David was getting married. She thought you knew." Amara set the phone down slowly. She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling like the air in the room had been sucked out. The insult at the bachelor party had hurt, but this was a wound that went deeper. It wasn't just that he had been unfaithful. It was the fact that he had looked her in the eye all these weeks, smiled at her, held her hand, and planned a wedding while keeping another life hidden. She sat there until the first light of morning crept through the curtains, her body stiff, her mind racing. Somewhere inside her, something had shifted, something that would not shift back. The morning after the photo from Ada, Amara moved through her day like a shadow of herself. She answered calls from vendors, responded to messages from friends, and confirmed details with the decorator. But inside, her mind was somewhere else entirely. She had questions, and she needed answers. She started with David's driver, Musa. They had always been friendly. Musa often joked with her when David wasn't around. That afternoon, she called him, pretending to check on the schedule for the week. After a few casual words, she asked quietly, "Musa, do you remember when David traveled to Dubai 2 months ago?" There was a short silence on the line before Musa said, "Yes, madam." "Was he alone?" She pressed gently. Another pause. Then Musa lowered his voice. "Madam, I don't want to cause trouble, but Oga was with one lady. They stayed together the whole trip." Her heart sank, but she kept her voice calm. "Thank you, Musa. I won't tell him you said anything." That night, she created a fake social media account using a random name and picture. She sent a follow request to the woman from the Dubai photo. Within hours, the request was accepted. Amara scrolled through the woman's posts, her breath tightening as she found photos of the same trip, same hotel, same outfits, same dates. Then she found something worse. Screenshots the woman had posted on her private story, messages from David. In one, David wrote, "She's sweet but too local. I'm trying to make her more presentable." In another, "Her mother still farms." Imagine, the woman had replied with a laughing emoji, and David had responded with, "I'll polish her up. She should be grateful." Amara stared at the screen until her vision blurred. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was humiliation. He had turned her life, her family, and her sacrifices into a joke. Meanwhile, the days rushed forward toward the wedding. Guests began arriving from abroad, cousins from Canada, an uncle from Germany, old school friends from the UK. Her mother was busier than ever, moving between the tailor, the caterers, and the church. She spoke about the wedding with pride, telling anyone who would listen how blessed Amara was to be marrying a man like David. Amara forced smiles, but her nights were sleepless. She lay awake, replaying every moment she had trusted him, wondering how she could have missed the truth. David noticed her change. One evening, when they met to finalize the guest list, he leaned back in his chair and studied her. "You've been distant," he said. "I'm just tired," she replied. "Tired? Or ungrateful?" His voice had a sharp edge now. "You should remember where you came from. Not every man would do for you what I've done." She swallowed the words rising in her throat. She knew if she spoke her mind now, the truth would come spilling out, and she wasn't ready for that. 2 nights before the wedding, there was a family dinner at her mother's house in Enugu to welcome David's relative. The living room was warm with laughter, plates of jollof rice and goat meat filling the table. Amara sat beside her mother, trying to relax. David was across the table, talking with one of his cousins in Igbo. He must have thought no one else was paying attention when he leaned closer and said, "This food is too village style. No presentation at all." Amara froze. Her mother's smile didn't falter, but Amara knew she had heard. The air between them shifted, just slightly, but enough for Amara to feel it. The rest of the night passed in polite conversation, but Amara could barely taste her food. She kept looking at her mother, at the lines on her face from years of hard work, at the pride she still carried despite what little she had. Inside, something in Amara began to harden. She didn't know exactly what she would do yet, but she knew she couldn't walk into that church in 2 days pretending nothing had happened. The church smelled faintly of fresh flowers and furniture polish. White ribbons hung along the pews, and the choir's soft harmonies floated through the air as they rehearsed. The wedding rehearsal was supposed to be a joyful moment, a final run-through before the big day. Amara arrived early, wearing a simple cream dress and holding a folder close to her chest. Inside were the screenshots from the woman's social media, the printed messages mocking her family, and a USB drive with Moose's voice notes. She had looked at them over and over the night before until her decision became clear. David was late. The pastor had already started explaining the order of the ceremony when the heavy doors at the back of the church opened. David strolled in, phone pressed to his ear, a wide grin on his face. "Yes, baby, I'll call you later," he said into the phone before ending the call. Amara's stomach tightened. She had no doubt who baby was. "David," she called from the front, her voice steady. "Can we talk?" "In the pastor's office." He raised an eyebrow but followed her. Inside, the office smelled of paper and polished wood. The pastor excused himself to give them privacy. Amara placed the folder on the desk and opened it slowly. "I know everything," she said. David frowned. "Everything about what?" She slid the first sheet toward him, the Dubai photo. Then the printed messages. Then the transcript of Moose's voice note. He barely glanced at them before leaning back in the chair. "Amara, you're overreacting. That woman is just a friend. Those messages were jokes. You know how guys talk." Her voice didn't rise. "Calling me a village girl at your bachelor party was also a joke?" His eyes narrowed. "So you were spying on me now? Listening to my private conversations? You really think you can make a marriage work if you act like this?" She stared at him, calm but unflinching. "No, David. I think you've already made it clear this marriage wouldn't work." The door creaked open, and her mother stepped in, holding a small tray of drinks for the pastor. She froze when she saw the papers on the desk, her eyes scanning David's tense face. "What is going on here?" her mother asked softly. Amara didn't look away from David. "Mama, you need to hear this." She played Moose's voice note out loud. The driver's voice filled the room, describing David's trip with the other woman. Then she read aloud one of the printed messages, the one where David had written, "Her mother still farms." "Imagine." Her mother's lips tightened, but she said nothing. David pushed back his chair. "You're embarrassing me in front of your mother, Amara. All this over nothing. Do you think any other man would?" She cut him off, standing. "Stop. I don't need to hear what other men would or wouldn't do. I just needed to see you clearly." Her mother watched silently as Amara reached for her left hand. She slid the engagement ring off slowly, feeling the cool metal leave her skin. Without a word, she placed it in the center of the desk. David stood up sharply. "You're making a mistake." Amara turned toward the door. "No, I'm correcting one." When she stepped out of the office, the bridal party was waiting in the hallway. The bridesmaids in pastel dresses, the groomsmen in matching suits, the choir still humming in the background. Conversations fell silent as she walked past, her head high, her hands empty. Her mother followed a few steps behind, her face unreadable. David stayed in the office, the ring still lying on the desk between the scattered papers. Amara didn't look back. The cool air outside the church hit her face, and for the first time in weeks, she felt like she could breathe. The next morning, Amara was on a bus heading back to Enugu. She sat by the window, watching the green fields roll by, feeling both heavy and light at the same time. Her mother sat beside her in silence, holding her hand gently. They didn't talk much, but they didn't need to. Back home, the small family house felt warm and familiar. The smell of firewood cooking and the sound of goats bleating in the distance wrapped around her like a blanket. For the first few days, she slept late, helped her mother in the kitchen, and stayed away from her phone as much as possible. The wedding hall manager called her to confirm the cancellation and promised to refund part of the deposit. When the money came through, Amara surprised her mother by saying, "I want to start something here, a catering business." Small at first, but I know I can grow it. Her mother smiled, the kind of smile that showed both pride and relief. Then we will start, she said simply. Within weeks, Amara had a stall at the local market, selling trays of jollof rice, pepper soup, and meat pies. Her cooking had always been good, but now people lined up for her food. She named the business Nkem's Kitchen, after her late father. Meanwhile, social media was buzzing. Guests from the almost wedding were posting vague captions, and whispers spread online. Some people speculated, others pitied her, but Amara didn't respond. She had deleted David's number from her phone, blocked him on all platforms, and told herself she would not waste one more second explaining her life to people who didn't matter. David still tried to reach her. At first, it was calls and messages. Then, one hot afternoon, he showed up at the market. She saw him from a distance, stepping out of a sleek black car. Her heart thudded, but she didn't stop serving her customers. When he came closer and started to speak, she simply said, "There is nothing for us to talk about," and turned away. Her mother appeared from the back of the stall, standing beside her like a quiet wall. David left after a few minutes, his face tight with frustration. Amara began to find her rhythm again. She started meeting with young girls in the community, sharing her story in small ways, not the gossip, but the lessons. She told them about setting boundaries, about not letting anyone make them feel small, about knowing their worth before giving their heart away. Some evenings, she would sit outside with Chaik, watching the sun dip behind the trees. She felt calmer now, like the storm had passed and left her stronger than before. Her life was no longer about the wedding that never happened. It was about the life she was building with her own hands. The hall was filled with music and the shimmer of gold decorations. Amara walked in wearing a deep green dress that hugged her figure, her hair in soft waves, her smile easy and sure. It had been months since she left Lagos, and she had returned only for her close friend's wedding. She greeted old friends, laughed, and danced. There was no heaviness in her steps anymore. She felt lighter, as if the air around her moved in her favor. Then, across the room, she saw him. David sat at a table near the back, the woman from the Dubai photo beside him. They looked different now, tense, avoiding each other's eyes, their smiles stiff. For a moment, the noise of the room faded. Their eyes met. He held her gaze, maybe searching for anger or regret. But there was none. Amara's lips curved into a small smile, not mocking, not bitter, just calm and certain. Then she turned away and joined the laughter at her table. Later, as the bride tossed her bouquet and the crowd cheered, Amara felt something settle in her chest. It wasn't victory over him. It was victory over who she used to be, the girl who stayed silent, who thought love meant shrinking herself to fit someone else's world. She took a slow breath, letting the music and joy of the moment sink in. I didn't just leave the wedding. I left the woman I thought I had to be. Hey besties, thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed Amara's journey from heartbreak to self-love, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Your support means the world. See you in the next one, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Next up, her friends invited everyone except her to their girls' trip, so she booked one seat beside.